Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Aquí tienen el horario para hoy, lunes el 3 de marzo. Learning target for today is to be able to describe aspects of your daily routine. And our warm-up is conjugation bingo. Now I'm going to go ahead and go over how to go about this assignment with you, although you can watch the video here for video instructions. We are going to play 4 games. 1 game completely dedicated to AR verbs, 1 game completely dedicated to ER verbs, another game for IR verbs, and then our 4th and final game is a mix. So if you've been absent, please don't just write absent and say that, oh, I don't need to make up what I missed. No, you need to do what you're doing right now, which is to watch the daily agenda video, take a look at what you missed, and make it up. So for game 1, let me go to our text. Game 1 is going to consist of AR verbs. Here you have the AR conjugations, o, as, a, amos, an. The verb conjugations that correspond with each of the subject pronouns. Go ahead and choose any 5 AR verbs. Again, on page 79, the very next page, you have a whole bunch to choose from. Take 5 AR verbs and then conjugate them in the 5 forms. This first column, as the instructions say, the B column will be dedicated to yo. I will become tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, and ellos, ellas, ustedes for the NGO. So if we take a look at the verb hablar, for example, or estudiar, since that's the verb that's provided here in the book, it would be yo estudio in this column, tú estudias in this column, él, ella, usted estudia. In the middle column, nosotros estudiamos, and then ellos, ellas, ustedes estudian. O, as, a, amos, an. And you're going to do that for 5 AR verbs. And again, page 79 would be a great place to go. Your next game is going to be ER verbs. Going to page 126, what we went over last week, you have your regular ER conjugations. Choose 5 verbs. 5 ER verbs and conjugate them the exact same way as you did for your AR verbs. For your IR verbs, same endings as ER verbs, only difference the nosotros form. So do account for that. Use those conjugation endings. Choose 5 IR verbs. And then fill in your third game with the appropriate conjugations. 4th and final game is going to use the verbs venir, venir and tener. Okay, and how those conjugate irregularly. We deem them irregular because the yo form conjugation changes from just an O ending to GO. There are other verbs that follow this irregular pattern. Also makes tener and venir irregular is that there's what we call a stem change, that there's some sort of spelling modification in the conjugate, in the stem itself. And for the verbs tener and venir, they share the same stem change. The E in the stem changes to IE. So 2 of the 5 verbs you're going to use for your 4th game are tener and venir. And then for the other 3 verbs, just choose any AR, ER, or IR verbs. 1 AR, 1 ER, and 1 IR. You can choose regular verbs, such as those that we looked at on page 127. So pick 1 and 1, and then from page 79, pick 1 AR verb, ideally ones that you haven't used for the other 3 games. Submit that in Canvas. That'll be our warm-up for today, and the only thing that's due by midnight tonight. New notes, as we just went over on the verbs tener and venir. We'll finish playing conjugation bingo. Give you guys an opportunity to submit that in class. Due next class is what we had discussed at the end of last week, un día típico. Now for this assignment, you guys are going to highlight 6 parts of your daily routine. It's for 12 points. How do you get 12 points? 2 points per sentence. You get a half a point for indicating the time. A la, if the time is 1 o'clock, or a las, if the time is anything greater than 1 o'clock. So for example, a las 9, 9 o'clock. De la mañana would be in the morning. De la tarde would be in the afternoon. And de la noche would be in the evening or nighttime. And if you need to go back into the textbook, page 50 indicates how we express time in Spanish. This is for how to tell what the current time is. But on page 51, as you may recall, to indicate at what time something takes place, we would use a la if the time is 1 o'clock, and a las if the time is 2 or more. And here again you have your times of day. That's on pages 50 and 51. So that's half the battle. Express the time and time of day at which you do 6 random activities. And I don't want you to use vocabulary you're not familiar with. To brush your teeth, to make the bed. That's not vocabulary that we've gone over yet. We've gone over standard AR verbs. Bailar, cantar. Now I understand that may not pertain to your daily routine, but cenar probably does. Conversar, one would hope. Desayunar, descansar, dibujar, escuchar música, estudiar, hablar con amigos, llegar a la escuela, llegar a casa, practicar deportes, regresar a casa, terminar la tarea, trabajar en la tarea. Now, a lot of verbs that you can use there, and those are your regular AR verbs on page 79. Then if you go to page 127, you have your regular ER and IR verbs as well. So that's where I want your sentences to derive from, or your verbs to derive from. And then you're going to conjugate those verbs, just as how you did for conjugation bingo. You're going to conjugate them according to your subject, and I would imagine, since this is about your routine, that your conjugations would either be in the yo form, or perhaps in the nosotros form if you're including your friends or family, such as this first example. A las 9 de la mañana, mis amigas y yo bebemos un café. 9 in the morning, my friends and I have a coffee or drink coffee. So you can begin with the time and time of day, followed by your subject and verb, or you can begin with your verb and then follow it by the time and time of day. For example, asisto a la clase de yoga a las 9 de la mañana. A las 9:30 de la mañana.